we know little about Spartacus. Ancient texts tell us that Spartacus was a soldier who served in the auxiliary units of the Roman army and was therefore well acquainted with the military tactics of the Roman Empire. According to legend, Spartacus deserted, was captured, was forced to work in a chalk quarry, and, thanks to his knowledge of warfare, was bought by a gladiator school in Capua. Says Osivera. I am Spartacus. An integral part of Holy Week are the ancient Romans flooding every TV channel and biblical-themed movies, especially Stanley Kubrick's Spartacus, 1960, that caused a rift between Kubrick and Kirk Douglas, a film that isn't historically accurate and never truly answers the question of who Spartacus really was. Apart from the legend, we know very little about Spartacus. Ancient books state that Spartacus was a soldier, originating from Thrace, modern-day Bulgaria, who served in the auxiliary divisions of the Roman army. Hence, he was well acquainted with the military tactics of the Roman Empire. According to the legend, after deserting, Spartacus was captured and forced to work in a chalk quarry. Owing to his military expertise, he was purchased by a gladiator school in Capua owned by Lentulus Batiatus. The most famous slave revolt. Although many free individuals aspired to try their luck, gladiator schools primarily recruited prisoners, those sentenced ad gladium, to the sword, and to forced labor, and slaves sent to these schools by their masters for training to later serve as bodyguards. Training was rigorous, consistent battles in the arena demanded immense stamina. However, gladiators, needing to preserve their health, lived in comfortable conditions and could eventually buy their freedom over time. Among the slaves, who made up more than 20% of the entire Roman Empire's population and faced various insults and persecutions from their masters, gladiators were a privileged class. This was mainly because they consistently had access to weapons. In the summer of 73 BCE, 80 gladiators, led by Spartacus, escaped from a school in Capua and took refuge at the base of Mount Vesuvius. From there, the famous large-scale slave revolt began. Among the gladiators, led by Spartacus and two Celts, Crassus and Oenomao, were individuals from all corners of the Roman Empire: Thracians, Celts, Germans, and Slavs. They had little weaponry and relied solely on their strength. Soon, Spartacus, a skilled military leader, managed to organize the diverse crowd of men and women from different tribes into an army capable of defeating two consular legions, quickly recruiting new members into its ranks. At that time, Rome's finest troops were stationed outside the Italian peninsula. Praetors Gaius Glaber and Verinius were caught off guard on Vesuvius's slopes by this army of new recruits, which consisted not of slaves from major cities, but of runaway peasants, deserters, and other rural residents. Given the situation's gravity, then, consuls Lucius Gellius and Gnaeus Lentulus personally took command. Lucius Gellius moved south and defeated the 20,000-strong army of Crassus on the slopes of Mount Garganus in Apulia. At the same time, Gnaeus Lentulus was battling Spartacus's forces in the north, and Gellius decided to join him to put down the revolt conclusively. However, Gnaeus Lentulus was defeated. Spartacus attacked Gellius, and even the combined consular army couldn't stand against the Thracian. Cruel measures. Alarmed by the scale of the uprising, the Senate sent Marcus Licinius Crassus, one of the wealthiest and most influential men in Rome, to combat Spartacus. Crassus, having been appointed as praetor, keen on instilling discipline within the Roman legions, revived the ancient Roman practice of decimation. Every group of 10 soldiers drew lots, and the one selected was beaten to death by the other 9 with stones or clubs. Moreover, for the remaining 90% of the soldiers, their wheat ration was replaced with barley, and they were required to pitch their tents outside the military camp. Such harsh measures might have undermined morale, but they seemed fitting in a situation where a group of slaves had managed to instigate a rebellion in the heart of the Italian peninsula. The praetor, commanding 8 legions, initially faced several setbacks against the indomitable Spartacus, but he soon began reclaiming territory from the rebels. Crassus ordered the construction of an extensive fortified wall, about 65 kilometers long, to trap the rebel army on the southernmost tip of Italy. As British historian Adrian Goldsworthy writes in his book In the Name of Rome, The Men Who Won the Roman Empire, Spartacus and his army, realizing they were trapped, made arrangements with Cilician pirates who promised to transport the rebels to Sicily, which could serve as an impregnable bastion for the insurgents. However, the Romans, anticipating Spartacus's intentions, bribed the pirates to betray the Thracian slave. In desperation, the rebel leader attempted to use Hannibal's tactics. On a stormy night, he gathered as many oxen as possible, attached torches to their horns, and sent them towards the enemy's most vulnerable zone. Roman forces were drawn to where the torches were headed but soon discovered that it wasn't men but oxen. Taking advantage of the chaos, the rebels crossed the pass unnoticed. Cruel punishment. Despite his cunning maneuver, Spartacus was compelled to face Crassus's legions. In 71 BC, before the start of the operation, the former gladiator slit his own horse's throat, signaling his intent to fight to the end. And so he did. Plutarch writes that the Thracian warrior charged at Crassus, killing 2 of his centurions before being surrounded and slain by the enemy. The majority of the rebels died in the battle, with 6,000 who surrendered later crucified along the Appian Way from Capua to Rome as a warning to other slaves. Spartacus's body was never found among the crucified or those killed in combat. After the victory, Crassus, who dreamt of a full triumph, was granted only a minor triumph with an ovation by the Senate, ensuring Spartacus wouldn't be turned into a martyr. Meanwhile, Gnaeus Pompey, who also participated in the final phase of the campaign, started campaigning for a consulship and a triumph for his deeds in Spain, which was granted. Thus, Pompey, having defeated only a few thousand slaves, unduly claimed much of Crassus's glory. Crassus merely crushed the fleeing slaves, while Pompey rooted out the uprising's origins, insisted the favorite enforcer of dictator Sulla. The rift between Crassus and Pompey paved the way for the political events of the ensuing years.